Hey guys, in this video, we're going to go over the Cybertruck's battery and range, and maybe why the battery and range really isn't what was originally promised, as far as even most recently when they did release the updated mileage of 320 to 340 miles. Now, they came out with the 4680 Cybercell. So, what kind of sets this apart is they say it's about 10% bigger, but Musk's claim for this was a little bit different. They have what's called the 4680. So that means the diameter is 46 millimeters and the height is 80 millimeters. Now, the 2170 cell is in the Model 3, and you can guess the dimensions of that battery. You're now ready to go. That's how they do it. Now, looking at the exterior dimensions doesn't actually tell us anything about the performance of that particular battery. This is one of those situations where it's what's on the inside that actually counts. So, in the 4680, what we know so far, it is a lithium ion battery with nickel magnesium cathode materials and a graphite anode material. This is different, of course, from the 4680 that they released back in 2020. That design was actually for nickel magnesium cathode with a zero cobalt and an anode made with both graphite and silicone. Well, that really hasn't ever been made yet. Okay, but could be in the future. More on that to come. Now, the current iteration of the 4680, we can tell it, let's call it Generation 1, has only been used for a very limited volume of a very just obscure Model Y. But luckily, we have enough data to compare that 4680 to the new one. We'll call the Gen 1 Cybertruck, plus 10% performance. The 4680 battery is called the CyberCell. Now, there's somebody apparently on X that worked out some calculations on the energy, and I'm going to go into that right now. Now, the 4680, let me just go into the math. Okay, so it weighs 355 grams for the cell, and the individual cells can store about 81.2 watts of energy. And if we know both of that, we can work out the energy density of the Gen 1 battery, which is the most effective measurement of a battery's raw potential. We have to consider the efficiency of the entire vehicle system overall. It will have a significant impact on the real world performance. So let's keep that isolation in mind. So let's do this math. It puts the energy 80 at 229 watts per kilogram. So let's bring in another baseline measurement here. The Panasonic 2170 cell that was made for the Model Y long range is calculated energy density at 262 watts per kilogram. So that gives the new about 13% less than the Panasonic cell, which is kind of, well, unfortunate. I think they could have done better. For early adopters of the 4680 powered by the Model Y, they did say that it did charge a little bit slower than normal than the regular Model Y. So hopefully these new ones are going to be a little bit better. So the output from these new superchargers, we hope that it is going to meet up to the standards that they said, because there's been reports that it has not been and the charging's dropping off. There's a lot of factors that go into charging, etc., but that's what we're seeing online everywhere right now for these foundation series. It is difficult to compare Tesla, to say Panasonic, Japanese supplier that's been making these batteries forever, right? So, they do have a good process down, and Tesla's trying, and so far they're modifying their batteries, but and it wouldn't be really that big of a deal if Elon wouldn't have been bragging about how they're going to be doing so much with all these massive sky high promises, as he usually does. But with the existing 4680 cells, when they don't anywhere near kind of that kind of performance for the Cybertruck, the Gen 1 4680 cells would just have to be too big and too much energy in order to achieve the massive number. So these packs that they have, the 123 kilowatt packs, to get those mileage, I mean, even if you look at the math, you would have to, with 10% more energy, you would still have to have like a 150 kilowatt pack. Now they're going to do that with the extended range, but I mean, let's look at this chart right here. You have 89.4 watt hours. But look at the kilograms here. You got 252 watts a kilogram versus the 2170s, which is 262 watts. So it's still The Panasonic, if they would have put those in the Cybertruck, it still would have, beat them out. So the CyberCell is better than the Gen 1s, but you're still worse off than those 2170s. Kind of crazy, I know, but let's hope that they get more and get into the, they could get another 10 or 20% out of it, which I think is coming. More on that to come. But right now, 250 miles of range is all you're going to get out of these Cybertrucks, and that's realistic at 100% with those 35-inch tires. I think there's a caveat for that, but I mean that's it. That's what we're looking at. 250 miles on a 122 kilowatt battery with the 35-inch tires. How much is it really going to change if you know change those out to thinner tires? Not sure. The actual overall, drag coefficient of these Cybertrucks is not bad compared to even other trucks, right? So it's not too terrible overall, but I would say that the range doesn't really actually matter as much as people think to a certain extent. But the Cybertruck really isn't typical. You would hope that it would be more, because if you're going to be pulling things, you're going to be doing some off-roading, you're going to want that extra mileage. If you own an electric car, or you're not, you kind of know that range can get important. So maybe they're going to add some solar panels later. More on that later. But 350-mile range as a minimum would be, I mean, real miles would be ideal, I think, overall. Because then if you're pulling something up a hill or something like that, it wouldn't be that big of an issue. But some of these foundation series have already been delivered to customers, and I think the Gen 2 CyberCell could be coming, right? So they would add the silicon at that point. Because if you really look at this, the Gen 1 versus Gen 2, when they filed the patent, the one on the right-hand side is the new one. You see how it's a little bit more concise? That was the 10%. But the extra 10% that they got out of the battery, they really didn't change anything but make a little bit more space in that battery to add some more of that jelly in there. So if they did that, that's going to be the 10%. So you can see that with those 4680 batteries, you're going to be able to tweak those a little bit further to get more out of it. So this is, I don't know how much more is in there. I can't, predict, but I would say there's probably 20% more battery availability inside of what they have. So, there's more to come. And, I think on the extended range, which the battery pack, that we're going to talk about that in another video, there were some hints that were just given out here just as of, I believe, yesterday about it, but they have been able to manage the performance in these things with just without messing with the chemistry. That's just working with the physical aspects of it. Everything's stayed the same with the 4680 CyberCell battery, right? So the stuff that was on battery day really still hasn't come to fruition with adding in more silicone. But the benchmark 2170 uses a combination of 50% silicone and 50% graphite. But the Gen 1 was just had the 100% graphite with no silicone at all. Now, this is probably likely to do with the electrode, the dry making that they do and when they roll it, but it just has cobalt, nickel, and magnesium right now. So when they add the silicone, one can only guess that that would be more like the 2170, that with that chemistry, you're going to be able to get that 10, 15, 20% more out of it. But there's no evidence of that. We're just going to have to see. I would bet that comes later this year. Your guess is as good as mine, guys. I'm just talking about it. But as far as how they're, pumping this thing up, they've built 20 million of those things as of last year towards the end of October. And all those, if we kind of we're going to do a little bit of math here about how many Cybertrucks, because they say they're making 50 a day, right? That's what they're putting in. Well, you can also look at the batteries that they've made, try to extrapolate that number to see how many they could made. And they had 10 million before that in June. So they are ramping it up. So you got 10 million, 20 million. What do you bet comes next? 30. So if they're able to do that in 100 and something days, then I would bet that due to the math here, let's see, that's 10 million in 117 days, and then they did another 10 million and much less than that, almost double the production to get that done. So if they're making 50 Cybertrucks a day, so what they say now, the math that was done on this thing months ago, means that they could make 450 Cybertrucks a week, which, oh man, that really pretty much adds up to what they're doing now. With the Foundation series, people are saying, oh, there's only going to be 1,000 of them. I think there's going to be much more. I think it's going to be more like 5,000. But according to this, if you extrapolated the math, you're looking at 34,000, actual Cybertruck units per year. But Elon said he wants to do and, work up to much faster than that. That does it for this. Appreciate all of the love and support. I want to thank Tesla Space for putting together a lot of these visuals for us to update. More news to come. This is CybrZoom.
CyberZoom.